Okay, we are live. What time is it? Oh. All right, for anyone watching this on the replay, you'll have to wait a while because the beginning is just never exciting as people trickle in. What about the background? Maybe I should change that. What do you think? Boom. A little bit lighter. I'm taking questions today. If anybody has any questions, throw them in the chat. If you're just joining us, let me know where you're coming in from. Say hello. I love, seeing where people are coming in from. This wasn't anything specifically scheduled. I just felt like coming in online and answering some questions. So if you've got a question, anything about fathering, or if you have a question about me or whatever, put it in the chat and I'm happy to answer. Tell you what's been going on here. We have been working on the membership. I got a brand new course coming. We did a little bit of prep today. We're going to be recording it tomorrow and editing it, and it should be up in the next week. That's for members. So if you're a member, you automatically get the new course, and that one is all about dad mistakes. Talk about mistakes in general that dads make, and then I'm also going to be talking about specific mistakes that we make with boys and specific mistakes we make with girls. Danny, good to see you. Steven, good to see you. Steven asked, can dads have postpartum? Absolutely. I have a couple videos about sort of dad depression. We just show it differently. We show the depression that we have and such differently. And it comes in different ways. A lot of men will drink. A lot of men will get angry. It could be looking at porn. It could be all kinds of behaviors. It can be just, like I said, anger in general. So yeah, it happens for many, many different reasons. But it's a real thing, and it's tough. It's sometimes difficult to deal with. And that's why, there's channels like this is to help you with that and to realize that it's totally normal. So some things you can do if you do have, that depression first is, knowing that it's totally normal sometimes helps. And then also, talking to somebody, whether that is, a therapist or joining a support group or something can really, really be helpful. So yeah, hopefully if you're dealing with that, I suggest talking to some guys. Oh, couple things. Macklin, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. Baby coming on the 27th. Congratulations. Bapjap, I remember you. You're here. Good stuff. Any advice on the Ferber method? Yeah, there's, we tried, there was a woman had a baby sleeping program. I agree. The crying it out was absolutely horrible for us. It's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but my son was literally like, I want to say 8 weeks old or something, and was crying, all the time. And we went away, and a nurse who was a family friend watched our child while we had to go to a wedding, and it was in another state. And we were so worried about it because we were leaving the baby, but she's a nurse and she knew what she was doing. And so she actually stayed at our hotel, watched the baby. And she was like, we come back and she's like, oh yeah, the baby was fine. Cried it out for a little bit and no problem, went to bed. And this was we had never had this issue. Like the baby always cried, always couldn't get it to sleep, and all of a sudden this woman just let it cry and it went to sleep fine. So I think it's very difficult when it's your child to let it cry and you feel so personal and you feel like you're leaving there. I think there are some baby sleep. I'm not a baby sleep expert, but I think there's some sleeping programs, like how to get your baby to sleep and such that, talk about removing distractions and having a specific routine at night and, the feeding schedules. And there's some things that we did that really helped. Maybe I should do a video on that. But I can't say that we did it really successfully at that time. And then for our daughter, our second child, my wife basically just nursed her to sleep all the time. She was happy about that. She just, because our first child, our son, like was in the other room and we just kind of separated. Second one, she was like nursing to sleep and then eventually would just put the baby to bed. So yeah, there's a lot of different opinions on that. I think that's a good video, actually. Maybe I'll look to do that. Let me see. I'm just reading here, so sorry for the silence. Well, Danny, you asked specifically, your son really struggles with fighting his sleep. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they have FOMO. They have fear of missing out. They don't want to miss out on all the excitement, but you just kind of have to let them. It's when they feed, they're tired, and they're cranky and such, and you just get in that routine. You have to sort of let them fall asleep. The sleeping is good for them, and you just can't fight it. One of the things we used to, and this worked really well, was actually run your fingers around the child's face. My son literally would conk out in like 2 minutes after doing that. So we would just run it around the face. You can sing a song, you can do something, and we would just run our fingers around his face and he was out. So try that, see what happens. Sort of just calming them down with that touch, I think really, really helped. Let's see. Pustea, I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. Since our baby started walking, the home office was really hard, even in a closed room while the mother is watching the baby next door. What can you recommend? As far as I guess if like working from home, you really have to time that. The baby, especially when like 16 months or so, they don't know that you're working or that what that means or that, you're busy. They just think that you're neglecting them. So I'm not sure if your mother's watching next door. I think part of that is keeping the baby occupied. When a baby or child is occupied, their attention is in the present moment. So it's games, it's toys, it's food or whatever. It's just keeping them really busy. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but that's not an easy situation. That's why, quite frankly, I didn't work at home. Was we had a brand newborn and I couldn't do it. It was too much noise. It was too loud. There was distractions. And so I went and got a small office. It wasn't possible. And so, when my wife was home or we had a nanny that would come in, I just couldn't do it. I was, making phone calls. And for me, it wasn't so much like I was worried that like people were going to hear a baby. It's just for me personally, it was tough for me to concentrate. I was very much like in spreadsheets and into writing and doing stuff. And I couldn't do it with a baby crying or a baby making noise in the background. So, I just couldn't work from home. And I guess that's, one of the sacrifices that if you work from home, there is no perfect way to do it. You got to sort of find an environment where you can have some quiet. And at the same time, the child doesn't feel like neglected. So, maybe it's on the hour, you take a break and, or with the baby. It depends how the baby is. Sometimes that could cause more problems. Nate, you had asked, thank you for your time. How do my wife and I know that our baby is ready for solid food? For example, is it when she can sit up straight, when she starts reaching for food? No, that's a developmental thing. I want to say, and I'm not an expert in that area. I would look online probably for that. One has nothing to do with the other. That I do know. Whether they sit up straight or reach for food or do something has nothing to do with their developmental levels. That's more of their body. I know initially with food, there are certain foods that you can puree and that they can have and that they can't have. But I'll be candid, my wife was really good with all of that. She handled all that. So I need to learn more about that. She pureed our child's foods and put it all in like these little like ice trays and stuff. And so even the solid food, so like we would, whether it was fruits or vegetables or whatever, we just pureed it for the longest time and it worked really, really well. And so, there wasn't really a limitation of the solid food part. But I don't know the exact age. I think it has to do with their development, not whether they sit up or not, or walk, or do anything like that. Yeah, Danny had said 6 months sounds about right, but I would look for some medical journals, or some official information that talks about that. I'm sure you can just put it in Google and say, when should a child eat solid foods? I wish I could be an expert on everything, but I try to be an expert only in the things that I know. And admittedly, the things that I've experienced, whether I made mistakes, whether I had training in them, or I'm learning about them from the audience. I try to just make sure it's tough. There's so many different subjects. If you watch regularly, a lot of the things that I talk about is our own mental health, our own mindset, and how we handle ourselves in relation to the baby or the child. And that's really a lot of what I focus on. And, the courses that I've created are like that. I have, the mindset of that, mistakes that we make, communication, it's a lot of things, discipline, even. It's a lot of how we handle stuff rather than like the development of the baby and where the baby's at. There's a lot of people who are really good at that. But for me, I talk about my own journey, the transformation that I made. I wasn't around babies or knew about children at all by the time I had mine. And so, it was a learning process. I took courses and got certifications and have an experience and talked to now thousands of people. And so, from that experience is what I can talk to. Otherwise somebody asked me a question the other day, about introducing your baby to your pet. And now I have a dog, but when we had a baby, we didn't have pets. So I don't have experience doing that. I can Google it. So I don't like to, pretend I know what I'm talking about if I don't. Layla asks, in terms of raising a boy, not a girl, but a boy, what should the father provide his boy? And what should the mother provide him? I think that's a pretty broad question, but I have a video on, lessons to teach boys, that dad should teach boys. I think there's a lot about, what it is and means to be a man. And, different people have different opinions on that. For me, when you have a boy, the way that you as a man deal with him is how he's going to see other males. And the way that his mother deals with him is often how he will see females, and vice versa. For me, and like, for example, my daughter, the way that I treat her and the way that I show her who I am shapes what her expectations are in the world, and shapes who, she's going to want to, have in her life and be around her. And the hope is obviously that if you're doing things in a certain way that you feel is best, that, your child will learn that. I think for, men and women, moms and dads have typically different things that they teach their children. But both of them, it's love and affection and support and all of that. But certainly there are differences. And I think I made a few videos of that. You might be able to find them. But, teaching my son respect and confidence and, chivalry and things like that are the same things that I would teach my daughter. I teach her to be confident and respectful. And so I don't know. That's one of the things that I think have been, I don't know what the word is, but sort of equal opportunity, with our children. It's like, my daughter is in martial arts, just like my son is. It's okay if my son wanted to do something that was considered, quote, more female, or more girl, it didn't really matter to me. You kind of just follow their interests and follow what it is that they're interested in, or follow, certainly people have opinions of that and don't agree with that. Men are supposed to do this. women are supposed to do that, and that's okay. That's their opinions. That's the wonderful thing about this world, is that we can have our opinions and bring our children up the way that we want to. And, that everybody, unfortunately or fortunately, has different opinions on it. Let's see. Oh, so Gavin says wife is due any day and has induction scheduled for 6 days from now. What video should I watch to learn how to handle the first few days at home? I have a video titled Bringing the Baby Home from the Hospital. It's a popular video, and I think that's probably the one. And then there's a couple of first time dad advice videos. But yeah, the one bringing the woman home, or bringing the baby home from the hospital, is a good one. Let's see. You guys are asking some good questions. Also, let me know where you guys are from. I'm curious. I just like to see. It's amazing, obviously, where all over the world and the different times that, I think where I am, it's 4:15-ish, 4:18 Pacific time. I mean, that's what's really cool, is to see Great Britain, North Carolina. Right on, Gavin. Let's see. All right, here's another question from that one guy. Father of a 2-year-old who loves her independent play, but I'm worried she doesn't get enough human interaction. Have you experiencing anything similar with your kids? Yes. Especially if you were, you're raising a newborn through the pandemic. 2-year-olds, especially too, like, they will independent play. And even at 3 years old, and my son, even at 4 years old, he didn't necessarily take to being really social until he got a little bit older. He was outgoing, but as far as play, he just didn't care. He really didn't care to play with other people. And I think that that's an individual thing. It's the spirit of the child. I don't think it can be forced. At the same time, you might try some play dates, and that will change when they get into like a preschool, or if they're into daycare and they're around other children. But I think at 2 years old, that's okay. I don't think that there's any, detriment to that. There's going to take some adjustment period, and but I think you're fine. I had the same thing with my children. The only difference with my daughter, who's the second child, was that she had a brother who was already there. So she had someone to play with all the time. So let's see. Danny, LA, right on. Joe, any advice for having a newborn and a 15-month-old? Stressing a bit. Well, rightfully so. Joe, I think, a couple of things. Are you stressing because having 2 children is going to be a lot, or are you stressing because you're not sure like how one's going to interact with the other? Kind of a couple different things here. So it's been done, other people have done it. It is a lot. So having 2. So yeah, I mean, you're playing man-to-man defense versus a zone. But you make it, and you learn prioritization, you learn time management. Others before you who are, this is always, maybe for some people it doesn't make them feel better, but there are those that are much less capable than you are who have done it and done it okay and done it successfully. But it is stressful. It's have some self-compassion for yourself and understand that it is a stressful situation. It doesn't last forever. My children were about 2 years apart, 24 months. And when they're really small, it's like, they're all over the place. You've got a newborn you got to attend to, you've got one that's walking around, but the thing you got to remember, it's not going to be like that forever. My children are now 14 and 12. I look back and everyone says it's gone by fast. And, my 14-year-old is now going to the gym with me and lifting a lot of weight. And I see him as this little baby, and he's not anymore. And he would not want me to say that anymore. And so, it doesn't last forever. It's something that happens, and it's a temporary thing. And so I think that that's something to think about, and that you'll be okay. You get through it. For me, knowing that it was going to change and it wasn't always going to be this way helped. Thinking like, oh man, I'm stuck. They're going to always be, I'm going to always have to be wiping butts. It's just not true. You just don't. So, good. Glad that worked. Marius, what is the best support you can give your wife after labor? I do have a couple videos in that. The best thing that you can do after labor is, well, talk to her. Ask her that question, because different women prefer different things. And, for some, it's going to be doing things around the house more. For others, it's going to be, concentrate on work, making money, do it, whatever. I mean, every household is different. And so I think it's important to have that communication. But, as far as like in just general sense, you're supporting her and you're helping. And keep in mind, the baby is half yours. So even when let's say, for example, you work all day and then you come home, the baby's 50% still yours. And so you still have to take care of the baby. And so I think that's a mistake that a lot of men who go to work and come home, and if the wife wasn't working, make, is thinking like, well, I've been working all day, and she was here. So, that's it. No, your work at home starts when you get home. And so I think it's just respecting whatever roles that you both have. And if you're the stay-at-home dad, vice versa, you respecting her role and what her situation is. Having a lot of empathy, I think, is probably the most important thing, and realizing how much it is to go through labor, to carry a child. I mean, there's some amazing things about it, but that is not an easy task. I don't think men can do it. And so, praise to women, because they're the ones who are doing it, that, whether it's the pain, the discomfort, the nausea, the sickness, everything, it's an amazing thing. Jonathan asks, what advice would you give to a husband whose wife is scared of pregnancy and childbirth? I think it's finding out what specifically, she is scared about, and validating her feelings. One, do not minimize them, do not make fun of them, or do not, I think giving her some compassion and some empathy would go a long way, and saying, it is a scary thing. I mean, something's going to come out of you and you have to grow something inside of you. I mean, that is a scary thing. And so I think validating her feelings and just letting her know, and you're here to support her in whatever way you can, and asking that and saying, what is it about it that's scary, and maybe try to do that. Now, if it's a real terror or something, then you might want to seek a professional. That might be something that a therapist or birthing coach or somebody can help you walk through. So I think that might work. Josh, how soon do you think a newborn should sleep in a separate room to us? So Josh, that is a very individual decision. Our firstborn, right away, our child was in the other room because that's how we thought we wanted to do it. Second child, right next to us, had a crib right next to our bed. So there is no right answer. I'm not the one to tell you what should be done. That's a very personal decision. It has to do with your own feelings, culturally, there's probably even spiritually, whatever. I think it's a very individual decision. And I think that's something that you discuss with your spouse and you decide, I think for me, I was always worried. I don't know why, because I think back, it was not real worry, that if my son, when he was first born, wasn't in his own room, that for some reason he wasn't going to become independent. And there's some philosophies about that, about, having independence and being sort of on their own early and learning some of the things of how to sleep. I would study that and there's benefits probably to both, and there's probably negatives to both. And I think you just have to weigh that. In fact, that's another good video that I could do, where I don't give my opinion. I just present the two different options. Some examples, just real quick, would be, that independence. They learn how to fall asleep a little bit better on their own. But then at the same time, there's not as much safety, the comfort when they're in your room and the attention that they get and they feel safe. So, I think that's an individual thing and a toss-up. Okay, so Eric, my 3-year-old boy does not like to listen. I've been doing the kneeling and talking in a normal voice and giving him options, and he gets tons of attention, but he also wants to be independent. Anything else I can try? All right, you're not going to like this answer, but a 3-year-old doesn't listen. It's very, very common. It's frustrating. You are not the only person with a 3-year-old who doesn't listen. In fact, when they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and up, they don't listen either. I was going to write a book called 1,000 Times, because that's how many times you feel like you have to say something. So that's kind of the overarching thing, is don't get too frustrated as if like your child is the only one that's not listening and that you're doing these things wrong. You're not. You're doing fine. What happens is, and especially like a 3-year-old, is they start to really want their independence. They start to challenge you. They start to, kind of challenge those boundaries, and not listening is often a part of that. So one other thing I might suggest, I'm not sure if I had it in the video, but I was just talking about this with somebody, is you have to do exactly what you say. And so oftentimes, parents will be like, if you don't do this, you're going to get blah, or, and they maybe give them 2 warnings or 3 warnings. I do believe in giving a child a warning. There's some parent coaches that don't. But I believe in like giving the warning and saying, hey, listen, if you decide that you're not going to do this, here's what's going to happen. And you have to make it related. And if they do it, boom, you are on it. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's done. I'm not a firm, big believer in like the countdown method of like 3, 2, 1, because they'll challenge you on that. If you don't do this by the count of 10, I'm coming up, whatever. That doesn't often work either. Stick to what you're doing. And if you can, have a conversation with the child, if they're able to communicate that and say, how could you, or what could I do that, what could dad do that would help you listen? And sometimes you'd be surprised that even a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, when they can talk, can actually verbalize that. They may not be able to. That's fine too. But I think you're on the right track, doing those things, listening, giving them choices, kneeling down to their level, putting your hand on their shoulder. Those are all things that are going to pay off. They just take time, and they don't work every single time. A 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old just doesn't listen. What you will find, if they're not already around other children, is that all these techniques that you're doing, you'll find that your child will listen tremendously better than most children. And so, that was always a good test, is when like they were in a big group of kids, and then all of a sudden I would look at my children and go, oh, wow, they actually comparatively, they are listening, or comparatively they are acting well, or, whatever. Not that you don't want to compare, but that's the ultimate litmus test. Like if you don't have any other around to see, you think that just like every children is perfect and yours is the one that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's not the case. I hope that helps. Let me see here. Wow. Wow, you guys, let's see if I can make sense of these. Gavin, recommend both being awake to help with breastfeeding in the middle of the night. I figured if wife is up, I should be up helping her with whatever. I disagree. If she's breastfeeding, that's a tough one. If she's able to pump and you could do one of the feedings like in the middle of the night, then I would do that. This was actually a recommendation from my mother, and I'm glad that she said it and my wife agreed to it. But there was no reason for us both to be zombies at the same time. Sleep is important for function. And the same way that your wife needs to sleep also. And so if there is an ability for you to maybe take one of the feedings, maybe she can pump, and just missing one feeding won't affect her milk or anything like that, that would be helpful. And then she can get a handful of hours of straight sleep. No, I don't think that both need to be up at the same time. With our second child, because my wife was breastfeeding like in the middle of the night and stuff, I didn't up nearly as much, if rarely, unless she asked me to and said, hey, tonight, could you take it? Or I'm so tired, I need some extra sleep. Just because she was getting up and I was going to be working in the morning and needed to get up. So no, there are going to be cases, this is for sure, and I can probably get some pushback on this. There are going to be women who will probably, because it's not easy, and I can get probably flack for saying this, but breastfeeding is not, it's not an easy thing. Some women enjoy it, some women don't. It's just how it is. But it's not an easy thing to do. And some women, there are personalities that want you to, quote, suffer the same way that they may be suffering. Now, for a woman who enjoys it and loves that time and just relishes in it, she's going to be less likely to care what you're doing. She may say, hey, yeah, it would be nice if you could help me do this, or, if you can warm something up, but if the woman is not enjoying it and it's a stressful thing for her, then yeah, she's going to probably want you to do that. And I think a better way is to allow her to sleep. And then another night, like one night you take it, the next night she takes it, or vice versa, or figure out a schedule. Yeah, I just don't think both of you have to be up. That's my thought. So I love controversy. I'm not that controversial. Bapchap. Yeah, I do. I have been thinking, you're saying about doing these weekly. I have been thinking about doing these, because I enjoy them. And so I don't know, we're toying with it. I do like doing the lives and answering questions. It's fun. And I get to talk with people. But it is hard sometimes to schedule it. So if I do it, I've just got to make the plan and go for it. All right, let's see. So I'm AE. I'm not sure if that's the name. Not sure if you answered this, but how do you manage your time taking care of the newborn, yourself, like working out, your wife, and your work? Well, I have a course. I have some videos on it too, but I have a course within the membership called Work-Life Harmony, or Finding Work-Life Harmony. And that's exactly what it answers. For those of you who don't know, I didn't even announce it, but I have a membership. Whether you want to just support me and what I'm doing, or you want access to all of the courses, discussions and such, and all the videos that are all categorized and organized, and every video that I've ever done, you can do a membership, and it's pay what feels good. So you choose what it is that you want to pay per month, from $1 to as much as you want to pay. And that's how we've structured it. And it's been incredible. People value it differently. And so that's what I wanted to do and create it that way. So there is a course called Finding Work-Life Harmony that walks you through all of that process. And I can give you a little bit of idea of some of that. One of the things is taking inventory of your time. We waste a lot of time. I'm not saying that you do, but and you said a military family, but we waste a lot of time. Maybe that's on social media, watching TV, movies, whatever. And so you got to take into consideration and really audit your time and then prioritize. And one of the overriding things is that you can't be perfect at all of them all the time. Like today, I'm going home a little bit early. I'm going to hopefully go for a walk with my wife and the dog. I'm going to be, quote, a good husband. I enjoy doing that. And a good caretaker to my dog. But you know what? I'm probably not going to spend much time with my children, or because I cut out of work, I'm getting less done, so you can't be like the most incredible at all of them all the time. And so that's one thing you have to remember. And that's the harmony. But the other thing is, you have to sometimes make some sacrifices. I can give you an example. For me, I wake up at 4:40 in the morning. And why do I do that? So I can exercise. I take the kids to school. I've got all these other priorities. I then go to my office, but I want to work out. And the time for me to do that is, if I want to do it, is early in the morning. That's the best time. I don't love it. I don't love getting up that early, but I do it. And as a result, I've got to either go to sleep earlier, and oftentimes I'll go to sleep earlier than my children, or I just get less sleep. So it's not it's not an easy thing, but it's about prioritization. And you just have to figure out what is the most important thing to you. And then also recalibrating that, often. Your partner needs your time. Your work needs a certain amount of time. If you're in the military, you have obligations. You have these different things in your life, and you just have to prioritize. And a lot of that's what I go through in the course, is auditing your time, prioritizing what you want to do. Also, what's your goals? What is the goal? And, like for me, a huge part of my life goal is building this dad university. And it's part of my legacy. I having assets and resources for dads and doing all this, it's a lot of time. And as a result, there are other things in my life that are going to be sacrificed. I may not hang out with the boys and the guys, on a night because I'm recording, or, on the weekend, I decide I'm not going to do something, or, I missed dinner with my family because I did that. That's a sacrifice that I have to make. And I make that choice. The other part is, don't beat yourself up about it. Obviously, if there's people in your life that are affected by it, like my wife, many, many years ago, when I was doing some other work and my children were young, she had said, "Hey, I really want you to be home for dinner." Okay. I had to make that decision. With this stuff, my wife has been very supportive and says, "You know what, if you need that time, go for it, do it." And, and so you've got to sort of be aware of your surroundings, prioritize, and, figure out what works for you. There is not a perfect formula, though, because it's different for everybody. Wow, there's a lot of questions while I was doing these. Marius, after how many months would you advise for your baby to fly abroad? I mean, there's people that fly. I don't know, unless there's some sort of medical restrictions that I'm not aware of. We flew our baby at, was it 2 months? Maybe it was, I forget the age. 2 or 3 months flew across country. It was a 5 or 6 hour flight. My wife just breastfed the whole time, and nobody even knew that we had a baby. So, all right, let's see. So Tony, what do you think about a girl growing up without a father due to the mother divorcing? And how can it affect a woman in her 20s having a relationship with a man? Well, if you're talking about yourself or somebody else, is due to the mother divorcing, is not allowing the father in the picture, or the father maybe is choosing not to be in the picture. I think those two different things. I think as a father, every father should fight as much as they need to have the child in their life. And that's not something you give up on. That child is 50% yours. I don't know if I'm talking about the situation or not, but I do think that it affects women for sure. Not every woman, but it certainly has a higher likelihood of affecting a woman who doesn't have a father in her life. There are things that, at least from my own experience, I have sisters, they had their father in their life. And it was valuable, especially if you have a good man who's the father. On the other side, if it's a bad guy and he's a bad father, then, that can have negative effects. So I think that's just an independent an independent thing. But yeah, I do think that it would affect. But as I said, every man or every father should fight to have access to their children. And if you're a man who's divorced, make every effort to be in your child's life as much as possible. It's hard for me to understand it, that if something was to happen between my wife and I, for whatever reason, I could not imagine having equal custody. Now, if one of the spouses did something that was horrible and was a horrible person, meaning horrible, meaning like they could actually, it's like the safety of the child, or an addict, or, they put them in danger, that's a different situation. But like, just because like the person is, I don't get along with them, like a child deserves to have both their parents, that's just a selfish thing. That one guy, thank you. That's really cool of you. The other thing too, guys, if, become a member, you can really small amount even. That guy just, put in some money. I appreciate that. Because, that's how this continues and how I can dedicate more time. BapJap asked about like doing a weekly thing. And part of that is, having enough income and revenue and support to be able to justify the time. I mean, that's the reality. And so, with the membership, even if you just want to put in something small, you put in a monthly membership, you have access to everything before everybody else does. You have access to all the courses. That's really something that you can help out with. And it's great. And you'll be like the first to know about stuff, the first, to get access to things. And so that's kind of the, what we decided to do, is really to sort of make it a premium. So the membership, you just go to the website, go to daduniversity.com, and you can just see, become a member, click on it, choose an amount, and you're good to go. Nick asks, would you expect your son, would you expect your son to respect a guy with his mother, whether you liked him or not? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Maybe you have to clarify that. Would you expect your son to respect a guy with his mother, whether you liked him or not? Yeah, I mean, like and dislike is different than respect. I don't know if I'm reading this correctly. I think almost all people should be respected. If you have respect for yourself, you should respect other people. And kind of, everyone gets to define that a little differently. It doesn't mean you need to like them. I can have respect for people that I don't necessarily like. And respect just means, they're allowed to have their own opinion. They're allowed to, just like me, I'm allowed to voice my opinion. There are people that might not agree with me, and that's okay. And, I get some comments sometimes and they don't agree with the philosophies that I have. Like, that's cool. That I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. I have enough self-confidence that I'm happy with what I'm doing and the way that I do things. And if somebody wants to choose to do their life a different way and it doesn't hurt people, like, that's cool. I mean, it's different if you're hurting people or negatively impacting people in some way, but, to each his own. So yeah, I think you should still respect somebody, even if you like them or not. There are people sometimes that don't earn respect or don't deserve respect, but, sounds like a mafia movie or something. Yeah. So Cedric, this is a good question. It was asked earlier, but it's probably worth, because there's different people on. The people on come and go. I just had a baby girl last Sunday, the greatest thing in my life, but sometimes it's hard for me. What are the tips to relieve this? Well, I think it depends on what is hard. Maybe you can chime in there a little bit more and say, what is hard for you? It's the time management. It's actually managing the child. It's, connecting with your spouse. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that are hard. I think sort of my answer would be similar as it was before is, you're in this just like everybody else has been in this. Cedric said mental. So maybe clarify what part of mental, like like understanding that you are now a father and sort of, you know, wrapping your head around the fact that you are a provider for somebody and that you know, somebody is relying on you. That gets easier as you have experience with it. But think about this. Baby girl, you know, you brought another human into your life, you know, a couple days ago, and it's hard. Okay, well, let's look at anything that you maybe have done and had never done before, never had any experience, and all of a sudden, you know, you're 3, 4, 5 days in. Take any sport, any art, any language, anything. You're 3 or 4 days in. It's going to be hard. And I think you have to put that in perspective that, you know, I now have been a father for 14 years and I'm learning all the time. Now, there's a ton of stuff that I've learned. And of course, I've put in extra time, gone through training and certifications and talk with people and create videos and courses and things. And I'm still learning. So I think you have to give yourself a little bit of grace, you know, and understand that that's okay. It's totally cool and okay that you're feeling this way. It's like, that's a normal thing. Everybody feels, you know, whether they admit it or not, you know, it's like that initial part, they could be the most excited dad in the world, but it doesn't mean that they don't have fear, you know, and I had a ton of fear. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to handle the baby. But first of all, you're ahead of the game. You're watching stuff like this. You're out looking for information. You're participating in a chat. You are, you know, 90% above the game compared to most fathers. And, you know, most fathers just think that they're going to be good or aren't even good or don't care. You know, that's the problem. And that's what we're trying to change. And so, you know, I'd love for there to be a different narrative. And you are proving that as fact is like, you are a father that cares. All of the fathers that are on this chat are fathers that care. They want to be involved. They want to improve their situation. They want to be better. That's why we're here. And I think that alone separates you and makes you in a better position than many, many others. So I think you give yourself a little bit of credit, realize that you're in a situation that is hard, give yourself some compassion, and, you know, talk with other dads, join support group, become a member. You know, you can come in and talk with us. I think all of these things are helpful, and realizing and sort of normalizing it that, you know, it's okay to not feel okay. You know, that's the thing I think men have to understand too, is that like this stuff's hard, you know, you know, parenting is hard. Being a human is hard sometimes. Cedric, you're welcome. You know, being a human is hard. Like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of difficulties. And at the same time, it can be some wonderful experiences. You know, the things that you're going to experience with your child, just incredible. You know, my daughter is now 12. I just got a notice that there's like, so we've done all these camping trips since she was like 5 or 6. We do these camping trips with the YMCA. And I just got a notice that there's a camping trip coming up. And she's kind of the age where a lot of people stop. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you want to go? She's like, yeah, I think that would be fun. So she still wants to hang out, you know, and part of that is just, you know, as a father, like you'll find out when they're 12, 13, 14, they want to just be with their friends most of the time. So, you know, I was kind of expecting her to say, oh no, I've got something that weekend, or I'm hanging out with this friend or that friend. And she was like, no, I think that'd be fun. And so, you know, that is from years of work. You know, the fact, and my son, I mean, these are things now, I don't quote bragging, but, you know, my son is willing to go to the gym with me and he's 14 years old. Like I'm bragging about that because there's not, you know, when kids are 14, they're not inclined to do that, you know, and I feel very lucky that I've established these close relationships with my children, that they're still willing to hang out with me, you know, because what happens typically is they get to this age, you know, they separate, they go with their friends, they do their things, and then they come back, you know, at a later age and appreciate you a little bit more and such. So I just kind of expect that that's what's going to happen. So anyways, I don't know where I got off track there. I was talking about my own kids. Let's see here. Wow. How hard is it raising a girl? In having experience with both raising a boy and raising a girl, they're just different. We've made a lot of effort to not treat them differently. In other words, like, access to the same things, and they can do what they want and how they make decisions and such. But it is a little different. It's like we don't share some of the same things that you might share with a boy, and some of the interests sometimes. But I think raising a girl is wonderful. I mean, but I love raising a boy too. I just got really lucky in that we were able to have one of each. So I think Javi says harder than raising a boy. I don't agree with that. I think that's an individual thing. I don't think that I don't see it as a gender that one is more difficult than the other. I think it's an individual child thing. Because you could have two boys and one boy is going to be just different from the other boy. And so, and also, where they come in line as far as, the first one versus the second one. I had a son first, and so he has always been an excellent big brother, and that's something that's been helpful for her to always have sort of this big brother. Whereas, like, as an example, for me, I had two older sisters, and it was always wonderful to have two older sisters. Like, they were just cool. They were always, I always looked up to them, and, they were a couple years older. And so, yeah. And I learned about girls more through them. And so I think there's benefits to all situations. I think you just have to kind of see what, sort of make the best of your situation. So I don't know. I couldn't say one was better than the other. And plus my kids will probably watch this, so I would never say that. They're both wonderful, by the way, if you're watching this. Let's see. What do you guys think about doing something like this weekly? Is that something that you would be interested in? Write in the comments. It does take a lot of effort. But I certainly could do something like that. I will say, and this is, this isn't something, because I had considered that for membership, of actually doing it weekly, and then maybe once in a while for non-members, but not everybody is a member. But remember, you can be a member for $1 a month. So, hey, I'd love more than that, but you know what? You can do it, and you can have access to everything. So it puts you in the fold. It puts you in the mix. You get access to everything. So, so Max asks, I'm struggling parenting, disciplining my 2-year-old girl. My wife tends to give in easily while I stand my ground with no until you kept all of your toys. So a 2-year-old, disciplining a 2-year-old, even 3-year-old, is, what's the best way to explain this? I think you have to think of it differently. I don't think the word is disciplining. A 2-year-old, while you think that they understand what you're talking about, they really don't. Their brain is not developed. And so I look at it a little bit differently, and I did look at it differently as I went through parenting instruction and coaching and understanding this, is that I started to look at myself as a coach rather than a parent, and as far as discipline. And so when your child does something that you don't like, your job is to teach them what is correct. Our job isn't punishment. Our job isn't hurting them or putting them down or anything. Our job is to teach them how to function in this world. And so if you start to think of yourself as a coach, okay, my daughter is leaving all her toys here and not picking up her toys. Okay, so that's a bad thing. And she keeps repeating that. Okay, well, she's 2 years old. She doesn't know what she's doing. So what you have to do is just simply teaching her how to pick up the toys. And that may be you being involved in that. And so I began to look at discipline much differently, and we think of discipline as like punishment. And that's not really what it is. It's like, and I will say that in my house, and my kids are pretty darn good kids. Certainly they do things that are not great, but we stopped having punishment, but we also didn't do reward. And I have some videos on that. My children, punishment wasn't really something that we needed to do. It was about teaching them right from wrong, teaching them what's appropriate, teaching them how to act and behave. And part of that is talking with them and communicating and understanding with them. Yelling, screaming, disciplining, spanking, but whatever you want to do that is angry or that is high energy in that way only teaches them that doing that is okay. It doesn't teach them what the correct behavior is. So this is a problem that I have a lot with discipline. It's like, and oftentimes when somebody disciplines, it has nothing to do with the situation. If your child is, maybe you can throw out a situation that you're having trouble with, but your child, doesn't clean up their toys. Well, okay, if they don't clean up their toys, then they can't go on to the next activity. That's it. And so, you know what? The first 100 times that you've said it, you probably may have to help them, or you probably have to show them, or you probably have to do, start with one toy. I mean, we have sometimes all of these huge expectations of what children are supposed to do. And then on the other side, we do all these other things for them, expecting that they can't do anything. And so I think discipline just has to be looked at in a different way. And to me, that is coaching. And I have that in a video. I have that in my courses. I have a whole course on discipline and my philosophy towards it. And it comes from psychology. It's backing the way that I teach and the way that I do it. It's from psychologists, Dreikers, and famous psychologists that have taught this way about being positive. It's very similar to positive parenting, and it's positive reinforcement. There's all kinds of things like that. And some people think of it as, quote, soft, or I don't know. There's criticisms about it, but I have a great relationship with my kids. My kids are pretty darn good people. I know they're going to make mistakes. The hope is that they learn from those mistakes. If you didn't make mistakes, then you're not human. We all have made mistakes, a lot of mistakes. I myself was, quote, a really good kid. I was straight and narrow, like goody two-shoes kid. I still did some stuff that was not good. I just didn't get caught. When I look back, that's how I think about it. So, Narlix Mole, awesome. That's awesome. You know what? Religion isn't part of my teachings. It's not something I bring into my teachings, but for every person, they have different ways of navigating their life, and I certainly welcome that. For everybody, it's I think everybody has their own things. Joel, what age did you start saying no? Joe, first question was, when is a good age to start coaching and disciplining your little ones? Mine is 7 months. How do you act if he can do no wrong? Well, it's not that they don't do wrong. They do wrong. You're just teaching them what is right. And, learning the word no is important, but it's hard. As soon as they're able to understand and comprehend something is when you should be doing that. So, as an example, like a kid that, is 1 year old or 1.5 and starts hitting, you obviously need to show them that hitting isn't appropriate, but you don't do that by hitting them back. I just was talking about this on a short or a TikTok. You grab their hand and you just make it soft, or you say soft or nice touch. You show kids what to do oftentimes instead of showing them what not to do. That's really a good way of teaching children is, you don't say don't run. You say walk. You tell the child what to do instead of what not to do. And it's a very effective way of teaching people, because people, even when you say don't do something or no on something, they still hear that. And so that often doesn't teach them. And so tell them what it is that you want them to do. Hold the fork like this, not don't do this. Just tell them what you need. So, wow, it's been an hour. I can't believe this. Final thoughts. Yeah, I'm going to think about doing this again. I say that, but I'm considering doing it, whether it's weekly. You guys check out the membership. I appreciate everybody who signs up for the membership. You can go to the website, daduniversity.com, and just sign up there. And guys, I hope you have a wonderful week. For this week, because I see a lot of this stuff, and I just took a course on this, excellent course. I want you to focus on self-compassion. Look up the word. I did a 3-part video series. It's on my YouTube channel about compassion. I talk about what is compassion, why it's important for dads, and then some practices you can do. Check out those videos and do them and learn about self-compassion. I never gave myself compassion, and it is something that is really, really important. And I want that for you as well. And as new fathers, a lot of you guys are new fathers. You're coming into the world with these new kids and thinking that maybe you're not doing good enough, you're not doing this right or whatever. Give yourself some compassion and learn how to do that. And I am now at my age just learning how to do that. And it took me a course in order to do it. I saw a video, like a TED Talk. I was like, oh my goodness, I need that so bad in my life. So I appreciate every single one of you. And, hopefully we can do this again. And as I normally say in my videos, I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.